starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, I'd like to convene the October 12th, 2020 Single Family Design Board. May I have roll call, please?
Thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call. We have Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair James,
Here.
Board Member Farrell,
Here.
Board Member Motisha,
Here.
Board Member Richards,
Here.
Board Member Sweeney,
Here.
and Board Member Ziegler. All right, we have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for the public discussion. Do we have anyone that would like to speak or raise their hand?
Mr. Chair, I believe we did receive one item of written public comment for items not on today's agenda. Mary, can you please confirm?
Okay.
Yes, Ted, we received one email from Isabel Walker regarding 1460 La Cima Road, and it's an item not on today's agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
And if you are attending this meeting and you would like to give verbal public comment, now is your chance to do so. Please follow the instructions on screen and click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel. And once staff calls on you, you will have 2 minutes to speak. I do not see any attendees in the audience today, so I believe we can move on from public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item B, minute. Want to move on to approval of the minutes of the Single Family Design Board for September 28th. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move to approve.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Second.
Hey, Joe, thank you. Can we go through the items, please? Item number 1, we have 1460 La Cima Road. Item 2, we have 1560 La Vista del Oceano Drive. All right, I believe those are the items. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to consent calendar for October 5th. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll make that motion for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ted, could we go through the items, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item A on the October 5th SFDB consent calendar was 1136 Mission Ridge Road, rather, and the motion was for project design approval and final approval with comments. Item B was 440 North Ridge Road. The motion was for project design approval with comments. Item C, 419 Stanley Road. The item was postponed 1 week due to the applicant's absence. And item D was 1479 Lou Dillon Road. The motion was for indefinite continuance with comments.
All right, thank you. And who reviewed the items, please?
The reviewers were Board Member Sweeney and Board Member James.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chair
Moving on to
Miller?
D. Yes, Hi.
Assistant City Attorney Tava Ostringer, if I could just, for
course.
the record, note that Mr. Ziegler gave a thumbs up on the vote indicating approval. If we have to go through this, if he can't connect and he's doing a thumbs up, if you could, for the record, when he makes a motion and he responds, indicate that he has given a thumbs up and then that has been agreed upon between the board as his indication of approval. Mr. Ziegler, if your thumbs up indicates an approval, please give me a thumbs up right now. For the record, he's giving me a thumbs up. Hopefully his audio comes back.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to today's consent items of October 12th. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I move to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, thank you. Go through the items, please, Ted.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item A on today's consent calendar was 802 Camino Viejo Road. The motion was for project design approval with comments. And item B on today's consent calendar was 1550 Cedar Lane. And the motion was for project design approval with comments.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. We have Chair Miller,
Yes,
Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals. Do we have any of those?
Mr. Chair, staff has one announcement.
Yes.
Assistant City Attorney Tava Ostringer is present to give some remarks regarding the procedures surrounding public comment as they relate to design review boards. Ms. Ostringer?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Chair Miller, board members. Just a real quick note on the last item for consent on October 12th, Mr. Ziegler did give his thumbs up approval. So I'm here because staff indicated that you had some questions regarding public comment and whether or not we read them into the record and that process. So I wanted to explain this generally comes out of my office. We're trying to be consistent with all of our boards and commissions and generally follow the same process that the council follows and planning commission. So in that regard, when staff intakes public comment, we've advised them not to try and interpret the public comment letters that come in because their interpretation could be inaccurate, or they could summarize it in a manner that the person submitting the public comment is not happy with. We have had that happen in the past. So because these are minutes, our action minutes, we just ask that the commission secretary note when it's verbal public comment, who's speaking, not what position they're giving. Similarly, we have asked the commission and board secretaries to simply say if we received public comment that yes, we've received public comment and that it has been transmitted to each of the board members. I know there's been some discussion about saying who submitted public comment or reading the names. We've generally instructed that we prefer that that not be done just because we want to treat every agenda item and every general public comment the same. So For example, in HLC, there was an item that received over 300 written public comments.
Wow.
And so for that reason, we don't want the practice of reading 300 names into the record. So we just said, okay, we've received this. Similarly, I think one of a project, most of the public comments seem to be not in support of the project, but there were a few that were in support or in support of certain aspects of the project. And at a board and commission meeting, it was summarized that the correspondents generally didn't support it. And so then we had the people that were supporting calling in and saying, well, you didn't say my position. So that's why we've generally now, as a practice, we've asked staff not to summarize any of our public comment and to simply let the public know that it was received and that you all have the opportunity to review it prior to the meeting. Now, I will say going forward, since normally we would be able to have the notebook that contains the public comment in the Gebhardt room for the public to view, since that's not available anymore, we are in the process of going through and making web pages for your boards where we will be posting all of the public comments on a link, so the public and you can click that link. Everyone has equal access. For the benefit of the public who's listening right now, please know that public comment is a public record and you can request it and staff will provide it to you before the meeting or after the meeting. So I hope that kind of clears things up. I know we've been all over the place with different boards and commissions and how we deal with this. So I really think that once we are able to get all that public comment on the webpage, it's going to be a really great resource for not just you getting your email inboxes sometimes clogged up with a lot of public comment, but also the public. So there'll be a lot of transparency.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be great. That'd be a great resource. But it also kind of underscores that we as the board really need to do our homework before we get on, so we read them so that we're at least familiar with it.
Correct. And there should be.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Yes, Fred.
It's appropriate.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Ostrander.
Mr.
You went
Sweeney,
mute.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sweeney, we lost audio. We can't hear you right now. So I don't know if you muted yourself or if you're too far. We had you for starting off.
Love technology.
All right. Do you want to try again? So maybe I think Mr. Sweeney is probably dialing in some numbers to reconnect if he was disconnected. So it might take him just a moment.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. There we go. Okay.
Okay,
Please go
yeah,
ahead,
sorry, my phone just went, I had it on and just went dead. Ms. Ostrander, when I was serving as chair, on a few occasions, we would get an email or a hand-delivered letter within like an hour or at the meeting from the public. Generally, it was usually just, a few minutes before the public. And in those days, I would read those into the record. Should we not be doing that anymore? What would be the process, or do we not accept letters if they don't get there by 3 o'clock? How does that work?
So there, Mr. Sweeting through the chair, there is on the agenda, or there should be the language that says you have to have your letters in, your written public comment in by a particular deadline so that the board can consider it. We will still forward the information, even if it came, 2 hours before the meeting. We'll forward it to you, but it just lets the public know that they generally, you may not be able to consider it. I hesitate to have you read them into the record, just because if, like I said, if you got 10 right before an item and we had to take the time to read 10 really long emails, it could just lengthen the meeting unnecessarily. And you can let the public know that you received some late ones that perhaps the board hasn't considered it, but that you can read them later.
Okay, and then just to be clear, there will be a website at some point where we and the public can go to see how many letters were sent and what the letters said, correct?
That is correct. We're working on that now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So thank you for letting me take up some of your time and assisting us with the process. I really appreciate it. And it's nice to see all your faces again. So I'm going to be leaving the meeting, but have a good evening, and thanks for all your work and hard work on these projects. We really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Tava. Appreciate the information. All right, let's see, moving on. It looks like subcommittee reports. I don't think we have any. Ted, should I verify if we do or not?
Mr. Chair, that's correct. We don't have any subcommittee reports.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to our agenda items. It's 3:16, so we're on time. It's a high fire hazard commentary from the fire inspector. Is Amber Anderson here?
I am
Mr. Chair.
here. Can you guys see me?
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Hi,
So-
Mr. Chair, board members, and Ms. Anderson. I'd just like to give a brief introduction to Ms. Anderson. She is joining us for a discussion on high fire hazard areas and the reasons why we have them and development regulations pertaining to them. So she's taken the time to speak with us, and just really appreciate that. Amber, thank you, and take it away.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me here very much. As the introduction stated, I'm the city's wildland fire specialist, basically tasked with overseeing anything and everything high fire hazard area related for the fire marshal within the city fire department. So no small task, to say the least, but I received some questions regarding several projects that have come before your board and across my table as far as plan review when it comes to high fire hazard area landscaping and what's approved and what's not approved. So for some background, our basis for what we require for high fire hazard area landscaping is really to help properties plant landscaping and maintain their landscaping in requirements with defensible space. And the city's initial defensible space requirements date back pre-2004 Wildland Fire Plan, or what's also known as the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which the city is right smack dab in the middle of updating. I'm sure you guys have probably seen our news out there. That's project's supposed to be scheduled to be completed in March. So we're right in the middle of it. So over the last 15 years, not only have we had a wildland fire plan to work off of with regards to defensible space, but as a primary driving factor for updating our CWPP also is the host of lessons learned and technology and research that has come out from, unfortunately, the huge loss in structures and property, particularly over the last 15 years in California primarily, but pretty much across the Western United States. In fact, just 2 days ago, I got back from the Glass Fire in Napa, which burned through their primary wine country right next to the Tubbs Fire, which was the 2017 big fire that swept through Santa Rosa. And I saw across 6 lanes of the 101 freeway up there and burned down a Target and a hospital, to say the least, with nothing else around. So I think the logic shows and lessons learned show, particularly over the last 5 years, the huge toll that wildfire loss has played towards structures. And what we're trying to do with defensible space primarily are 2 things. 1, to keep the public safe. Actually, 3 things. 1, to keep the public safe, to help them get out. 2 is to ensure the safety of firefighters when they are tasked with going into these neighborhoods. And 3 is to do our best to ensure the survivability of structures in these wildland fires. Because as you know, these wildland fires are so large that no one department or jurisdiction can attack these fires solely by themselves. So fortunately, California and across the nation, we have a program called California Mutual Aid. So we can pull in resources and engines from across the region, across the state, and across the country to help us fight fire. But like you've seen, there's never enough engines to put one at every single property. So we really use 2 tactics to help us fight these fires. It's defensible space, and what we've really seen over the last 10 or 15 years is using that in combination with a term called home hardening, which are putting features on a structure to ensure its survivability, given either direct flame impingement, radiant heat effects. That's like if a fire was really hot close by, but the flames actually didn't touch the structure, and ember loss. So the 2 play hand in hand, and neither defensible space or a hardened home by themselves can ensure the survivability of that home. So it's really a combination of factors. And when we are looking at defensible space within our city, and as true with most jurisdictions, is to help homeowners understand defensible space, we break that area up into different zones. And within our city, we have currently 4 different high fire hazard area zones, ranging from the coast all the way up to the extreme foothill, which is like the area off of West Mountain Drive. Perfect. Thank you for showing that map. So you can see our 4 different areas, and each one of those, as based on the 2004 Wildland Fire Plan, have their own defensible space distances as driven off of the fire behavior and modeling that we did back in 2004. And when we're talking about defensible space, our idea is not like a zero-scape yard or like a completely hard-scaped yard. In fact, that doesn't need to happen to help those structures survive. But what we're looking for is essentially reducing the density of vegetation and the flammability of vegetation as you get closer to the structure. So within this is kind of a little confusing. So we have defensible space zones like you see up here on the map, but then within defensible space, we have our own separate zones. And as a side note, if I can just throw it in there, with our update of the CWPP, that is also another reason why we're looking at actually renaming these high fire hazard area zones instead of calling them zones, which I don't want to make this too long, but back in 2003, Santa Barbara was actually one of the very first jurisdictions to put a wildland fire plan or a CWPP in place. And at that time, the nomenclature for naming our high fire hazard areas was not as standardized as it is now. So you can already see kind of the confusion our existing naming convention can cause when we're talking about defensible space. So that's a subject for the CWPP. But when we're looking at defensible space and the zones within defensible space, I'm just going to use 100-foot defensible space as an example. We break up that 100 feet into 4 different zones, with the furthest zone being the furthest away from the structure. And there, what we prefer is to have more native vegetation. You can have taller vegetation. And then as you move towards the structure, we want to limit the height and the density of vegetation, and also incorporate more irrigation, which you wouldn't necessarily see if you got 100 feet away from the structure. And what that all is aimed at doing is taking a high intensity, fast moving fire and move it slower, to get the pace of that fire slower as it moves towards the structure, and to reduce the intensity of that fire as it comes to the structure, both for the structure's benefit and for the safety of the firefighters if they were to be there at the time of the fire. So the other thing that we look at is the types of vegetation within defensible space. And initially in our 2004 Wildland Fire Plan, there were about a dozen plant types that we had considered across the board as generally very flammable plant types, like your pine and your Italian cypress and your sage. But over the last 15 years, not only here in Santa Barbara, but across a lot of our Central Coast communities and surrounding jurisdictions like Ventura County and LA County Fire, we're recognizing the role that landscaping plays, especially when you're looking at a community like Santa Barbara, where we are more urbanized than rural. For example, not being up on the outskirts of the San Ynez Valley. We have much different landscaping. A lot of it's ornamental and planted by the homeowners themselves. So that's true with a lot of these jurisdictions. And what we're finding is how flammable a lot of these ornamental landscape plants that are being planted really are when a fire moves through the area. So this last year in January, we updated our list of our prohibited plant types on our website for landscapers and landscape architects to use when developing their plans to help steer them away from some of these plant types that have continually shown to be more problematic into our high fire hazard areas. So it's a little background. I think how the process is now, and this is maybe where this conversation got started a little bit, was it's almost like a chicken or the egg when it comes to landscape design and approval with the high fire hazard area. So I'm newer in this position. I've held this position after the retirement of Ann Marks, which was about a year and a half or 2 years ago. And I think what she tried to do is start the building blocks towards a relationship between your review board and then what we see on the back end when plans come across to the fire department. So that when you approve a plan that's consistent with your design requirements and acceptance, and then they go to apply for a permit, and then that plan comes across the fire department desk, that I can also approve it, that there's nothing that either isn't in alignment with the requirements of defensible space or doesn't include any of our prohibited plant types. So I think talking to Fire Marshal Joe Porre, he's tried to say that maybe our review should come before yours, or to me, it's the chicken or the egg. But what I'd hope to do in this discussion is at least start some conversations between us so that what comes across your desk and then what later comes across my desk for plan review is in the best interest of those homeowners who choose to modify their landscaping and their building construction in our high fire hazard area. So it's just a very general overview, high broad level. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to you guys for your specific questions with regards to my program and our review process.
Yeah, I know Fred wants to speak up. Yeah, go ahead, Fred, please.
Well, I see Jan. I have many questions. I'm really happy that you're here, Amber. This has been a long time coming. Let me start at the material level. There's two things that we see quite often. We see requests for what landscape architects and architects call as green roofs. And then we also see a lot of requests for standing seam metal roofs, which on many occasions the architects present material to indicate that it is high fire resistance. Although as an architect, I know that steel melts a lot faster than heavy timber. So that's two questions that I have. And then I have questions about the updating of your map. And then I have questions about some specific street issues. There's several, but I've got a couple that I'll just use as examples. So I don't know how you want me to proceed with those questions, but.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Board Member Sweeney and Ms. Anderson, sorry about the interruption. Since this is an agenda item, we do need to open it up for public comment.
Sorry.
Very quickly. Mary, can you please confirm whether we received any written items of public comment for this agenda item?
Thank you, Ted. We did not receive any correspondence.
All right, and if you'd like to give verbal public comment on this item, now is your opportunity to do so. Please follow the instructions on screen and click the GoToWebinar control panel raise hand icon. Once you do that, staff will call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. I don't see anybody attending the meeting right now as an audience member, so we can move forward with questions. I apologize again for the interruption.
Oh, no problem. Sorry, forgot all about that. So, Ms. Anderson, if maybe you could just answer the first two on materials, the standing seam metal roof issue and the green roof issue. And why is there a differential, as we understand it, between the city's position on green roof and the county?
Yeah, often those are both very good questions, and several that we've received a number of times come across both my desk and the fire marshal's desk. So if I can start with the green roof question, we understand that green roofs, even if they adhere to what they call Class A or building code requirements, it's still, for us, in our opinion, really opens the door for the potential to introduce flammable vegetation directly on the structure. Like when I talked about defensible space and reducing the intensity and reducing the density of vegetation and fire as it gets closer to the structure, when you plant a green roof, you're essentially putting that vegetation directly on the structure. And our concern not necessarily is at the moment that it's planted, but is the maintenance of those green roofs themselves and the longevity of them as they pass property owner to property owner, for example. Or let's see, as an example, I drove by about 2 months ago. There was a green roof out of our jurisdiction up on the outer, it was either the outer part of West Mountain or East Mountain Drive was a green roof, relatively new. And you can see it over the road, and already there were weeds within that green roof and the succulent plants that they had chose to plant there. So that's a concern of ours. What we're finding a lot with fire behavior and the destruction of these homes, that it isn't necessarily anymore what they call the flaming front that comes and destroys these structures. What we're finding is more that it's the ember exposure that they're receiving, particularly, for an example, if we had a wildfire start up on the foothill and under our normal sundowner wind conditions, which bring these large, massive fires into Santa Barbara, that can push embers up to a half a mile, or 2 miles ahead of the main body of fire, those embers have the potential to embed themselves in the surrounding vegetation, or in this case, a green unmaintained roof system. So that's particularly concerning for us. The other thing that we're doing is looking to be in alignment with our other jurisdictions, like you state, the county fire. And as what's true with most building codes is that our jurisdiction has the ability to be more stringent than the code before us. So we can't be more lax than the county, but we can be more stringent, just the same with the California building code and California fire codes. We can't be more lax than those codes, but we can apply more stringent codes and regulations and policies on those codes. And this is that case where, independently looking at Santa Barbara, looking at our building construction, our fuel types, our topography, we have specific codes in place to adhere to the safety of our residents that are beyond the scope of what county would look at as a larger jurisdiction that has different building construction, topography, vegetation throughout the county as a whole. So when you look at,
Oh, sorry, Amber, can you say the phrase a little easier? You're kind of differentiating between the city and the county. What are you saying exactly about that?
Yeah, what I'm saying is when we look at the code system, how codes are set up, is that we as a local jurisdiction cannot be more lax than the code that's above us. So for example, at a high level, you have this California State Fire Code. Our city can't be more lax in its requirements or its codes than what the state puts on, but it does allow the ability for our city to be more stringent or more specific in our code requirements. An example of this, and I use the California Fire Code, but it's also true within Santa Barbara County. Here's an example where California Fire Code defensible space in their high fire hazard area is 100 feet. In what you can see on the map on the screen, that extreme foothill zone, we actually require 150 foot of defensible space, which is more stringent than California requirements and also more stringent than county requirements. But that's based on our very site-specific analysis of that area, given the vegetation and the topography. So that's one example. So while county may allow green roofs within our own city based on our modeling and what we ensure for the safety of our residents, we won't allow green roofs within the city of Santa Barbara.
Okay, this is critical. This is critical, Amber. And I would recommend any future client or potential architect or designer that is looking at a green roof that they watch this video. But anyway, go on.
You know, oh, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Amber, this is, I'm going to follow on his point before you get to the standing seam roof stuff. This is one of those chicken and egg things you talked about.
Right.
you know, people criticize the review boards for taking so long. And what we have now is the fire folks don't review things until after we see it. And that's problematic because we've had a few projects come to us with green roofs. We tell the applicant, as far as we know, they're not allowed in the city of Santa Barbara. The applicant says, well, I haven't been to the fire department yet. I'm insisting that I have the right to do it. We then go through the whole process of looking at their landscape plan, et cetera, et cetera. They then get to the fire department via building plan check. Department says, no, you can't do that. You got to do something else. That means they got to start all over again, come back to us for another review of not only trees or green roofs or whatever, but it just lengthens the process. So if somehow these folks, as Brian just initiated, can be told right at the beginning, look, folks, don't waste your time. This is not allowed. Don't come to the review board with a plan that isn't going to get past the fire department. You see what we're getting at?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about with the chicken or the egg. I do know that I have made my best attempt to establish relationships with a lot of your planners and have had clients send projects into me before they head to your review, now starting to understand what our requirements are within the high fire hazard area when it comes to landscaping. And they'll send me a PDF and I'll say yay or nay, or hey, take a look at this before they go to you. Because I don't want to come in at the 11th hour when we come to plan review after it goes through building review and everything and go, wait, no, you can't. Particularly green roofs, because it's not just changing some landscaping, but that can have major structural changes in of itself that can change the entire concept of a project, which is pretty huge.
Ted, did you have something to say?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Chair, board members, during the application completeness review process, there are certain types of projects that staff routes to the fire department prior to coming to design review boards for project design approval. These include, among other things, new construction in the high fire hazard area, remodels of projects that change the footprint of existing structures, vegetative roofs. Those are just a few of the items that we would route for review prior to any decision by a board. Just wanted to clarify that as well. Thank you.
I think.
Thank you.
Let me just say real quick with Fred, because I think Fred and I are thinking of a particular architect that came before us. I'm sure you all remember, where they definitely came before and they said it's in review, and they promoted it and they said it was gonna be great and wonderful. So it could be the stubbornness of the designer's part too as well.
But we don't have control over that, so that's the problem of the designer and the client. Ms. Anderson, on the standing seam roof, is that a big issue, or you don't really look at that a lot?
No, as far as the roof types, that's actually part of the building department review. And I don't, even when I was I don't want to say fire inspector, because I am a fire inspector, but when my primary responsibilities was looking at all the other reviews that the fire department does, we don't necessarily look at the roof type. So that would actually, I'd have to defer that to the building plan reviewers for high fire hazard area.
Okay, great. Then can I go on to the questions? I want to go to your map that's on the screen. One of the challenges we have, and I've gone on a website, there is a really detailed map of this kind of diagrammatic map that's on the screen. And the reason that's important in our case is because we see properties that a lot of them end up being right where the gray line is. And at this scale, the gray line could cover two properties, okay? So having a detailed map, and it's hard, we're all working from laptops, so it's always hard to see all this stuff, but we get quite a few, and I'm thinking about the coastal interior zone, that little piece that covers the top of the mesa. And one of the things we're seeing is a lot of ADUs. And I know there is an adjustment coming to council on the 27th of September, where council is going to address the ADU in high fire areas of the city. But one of the concerns I have is we've got some streets, not only on the Riviera, but in that coastal zone, that are very, very awkward. We have a street called, let me see if I got it here, Kayak Portita, I think it's called, up below Fellowship Circle. It's a very small, not very wide street, about 1 lane thick, goes down to a lengthy dead end. You can't see the dead end from the beginning. And when you get to the dead end, there's a fire hydrant there, but it's between 2 curb cuts of 2 houses. So there's about 2 feet there before it hits the driveway. There's literally no place to turn a fire truck around. I can barely turn my Prius around without 3 maneuvers. People park at the end of that street. There's no red curbs. There's no sign saying don't park here. They park along that, so it essentially is a one-way street in and out. And we've got a couple more. We've got one on La Cima Road, which is up off of Valerio. You go climb up, you get up there. We've got an ADU coming on that one. We've had some others because the property sits right up on the edge of the paving. Is the fire department looking at those particular cases? In my view, those are very dangerous conditions, and particularly when you throw in the ADU conflict of parking, no parking, all of that stuff that we're not allowed to deal with as a local entity. I'm very concerned that we're looking at a disaster waiting to happen, particularly up in that area, not only in the Riviera. There's a lot of streets in the Riviera that are just like that, but in that top of the coastal zone in the Mesa, in my view, is very scary. Those homes are all tucked into a lot of oaks. Have you guys gone up and really looked at that?
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of things that we can't do, particularly with the ADUs and the parking, but I can tell you when we do review, particularly the new standalone ADUs, is we do look at access and ensure. I know within the city of Santa Barbara, we have a lot of the non-conforming existing properties, but when it comes to building a new ADU, we ensure that they meet our distance requirements and our hydrant requirements, and as well as our access requirements to ensure that we have the appropriate width. So, and if they can't do that, then they have to work through our fire marshal to come up with some either variance to work around it or an alternate. I don't review that side of things, especially since the ADU issue has sort of picked up in my new role as the wildland fire specialist, but I do know that we were definitely looking at access because it's an issue. Back in 2014, we did do in our high fire hazard area transportation study to look at evacuation routes, and they did particularly call out the need to dive further into looking into things such as our narrow one-way roads and our cul-de-sacs, like you mentioned, where there's many homes on one cul-de-sac that essentially leave those property owners with one way out. So my hopes is that after we get the CWPP through in the spring, that we can use that in coordination with the evacuation transportation study that was done in 2014 and do one further analysis that really helps us understand how we can mitigate the risk factors for those homeowners who not only are existing, but also hope to or have ADUs in those areas when it comes to helping those folks effectively evacuate during a wildland fire. On my side, when they look at putting in an ADU, I also ensure that they meet our defensible space landscape requirements. So I'm looking at it, at least from that end in my role, with what I can do to protect those residents.
Thank you. That covers a lot of what I wanted to talk about, but thank you so much.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yeah, real quick, we kind of have to wrap it up because we got to move on to our next item, but please go ahead, Sharon.
Amber, I was just wondering, what website should people go to find that list of plants that they should avoid?
Very good question.
Well, thank you. I was hoping to squeeze that in at the very end if nobody asked that question. So it's almost like that was right on cue. I appreciate that. So the city right now, our main website is santabarbaraca.gov, which is the standard basic URL for the city, /wildland. And on that site, you will see this map. And then you'll also see the first couple PDFs, which show our defensible space standards. And then there's one called High Fire Hazard Area Landscape Requirements. And I think that that document is 5 or 6 pages long, and it's the last 3 pages, I think, that show more or less what is now an extensive list of prohibited plant types. One of the things that we're trying to do as fires are relatively the same, like I said, on the coast and some of our surrounding larger jurisdictions, is make sure that our defensible space requirements and our plants are in alignment with all the other jurisdictions. So a majority of our list, if you look at Ventura counties, for example, it'll be very similar. They actually hired a consultant to help them develop their list. So with their approval, we pulled that list and tailored it towards Santa Barbara a little bit. So hopefully moving forward, you'll see all of our jurisdictions start to work in more cooperation and coordination when we're looking at defensible space and high fire hazard landscape and building compliance. So
Great, thank you.
SantaBarbaraCA.gov/wildland.
Great. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments?
Make a quick
Alright.
comment.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. Also, I appreciate that you guys are making an effort to coordinate with other jurisdictions, because I've done projects in Ventura and there used to be some overlap where Santa Barbara would approve of various plants and then Ventura had a problem with them. And I was kind of left at a loss as to why plants, one area, some planting is acceptable and another it's not. But anyhow, I think it's great to have a list that's comprehensive between different areas. So thank you for the presentation. That was great.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I see that up here on the screen, you'll see the introduction page for that high fire hazard area landscape requirement document that I mentioned.
Thank you.
Great.
That's very useful.
Thank you
you,
very
Amber.
much, Amber.
Thank you all.
So Ted, I think we're ready to move on.
That's correct,
So-
Mr. Chair. We can move on to item 2.
Okay, so item 2 is this is a first for all of us. I'm going to have to step down because this is a project that I am doing. So I am going to recuse myself, and Lisa James will now have to be chairing this. So I'm going to remove myself. Now, Ted, could you please help us through this? What I've got to do?
Yeah, and I need to recuse
Mr.
myself
Chair.
as well.
Oh, yeah.
for this. I'm the landscape architect for this project.
Chair Miller and Board Member Richards, yes, we will navigate this a little bit differently in the remote meeting environment than we would in person. So let's just take our time and make sure it's done correctly. So Chair Miller and Board Member Richards need to recuse themselves for this item since they are the project applicants. They will be going to the other side of the presentation table, so to speak. And if we could pull up, I believe it's slide number 9 in the presentation, there's specific language, legal language regarding the recusal.
Okay. And I should read this, right? Or does both Robert and I need to read it? Or do you read it?
It would be best if Vice Chair James could read it. I apologize. It may not be slide 9. It's let me see if we can find it here. Could be slide 11.
So it looks like, I know that you're still looking to pull up a slide. Maybe just give us a minute. I might ask, we could have
Yeah.
a quick pause, and in the meantime, I think we need to change the titles. So if we want to do a short recess. And Mr. Chair and Board Member Richards, if you could please find your name on the list, the panelist list, and go down to edit name. You click once on your name and go down to edit name and email. And if you change your title to applicant instead of your SFDB title. So that's just for Mr. Richards and Mr. Miller.
Okay.
So there you go. And thank you. And it looks like we might just need one, we might not have had a slide that's saved properly. So we are working on pulling that back up, and we might need another minute if we want to do a recess. Or how much time do you think it might take to get that to Timmy?
Ellen and Vice Chair James, we are pretty close. I've got the language written up here, and we'll get it on the screen shortly.
Great, good deal. So I don't suggest having a recess, but we will get it up momentarily. So thank you everyone for your patience, and we will have it up very shortly. And to Mr. Miller and to Mr. Richards, just once this item is over and we've moved on to item 3, then you can go back and change your title again. Just, I mean, that's probably inferred, but that will be helpful to the audience.
Okay.
Okay.
So just to let you know where we are, Timmy just got a PDF and we'll be pulling it up momentarily. So it'll just be another minute or so.
Here we go. I will read the State Political Reform Act for Sole Proprietor Advisory. The State Fair Political Practices Act, FPPC Regulation 18702.4B5 states that an official may appear before a design or architectural review committee of which he or she is a member to present, explain architectural or engineering drawings which the official has prepared for a client. Brian Miller, Chair Miller, and Robert Richards are both sole practitioners using this exception and understanding certain limits regarding advocating on behalf of their client. Do I need to read the entire statement?
Vice Chair James, no, just the highlighted portion is necessary.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, and it appears that Brian Miller and Robert Richards are both now applicants. And we can go ahead and read the project description, but prior to that, staff just has a brief comment on what's on the agenda. The footer states that the project requires neighborhood preservation findings and hillside design and slope lot findings. That is not correct. The project received those findings in its last review on March 2nd when project design approval was granted. So you can ignore that line in the footer there. project only requires substantial conformance to the plans that were granted project design approval on March 2nd. Thank you.
Okay, then I will read the description of the project design comments. No, I will read the proposal for 160 Conejo Road. Here to seek final approval. Proposals for a 626 square foot first floor and second floor additions to an existing 2,994 square foot single family dwelling with an attached 600 square foot 3-car garage and a 456 square foot detached accessory building. The proposed total of 4,675 square feet of development on a 3-acre parcel in the Hillside Design District is 76% of the guideline maximum allowed floor to lot area ratio. Final approval is requested. NPO findings in Hillside and slope lot findings were made at the previous meeting. And this project requires substantial conformance with plans granted design approval on March 2nd, 2020. So if Mr. Miller and Mr. Richards would please give us their presentation. Do I need to read those comments?
Vice Chair James, if you don't need to read those comments. If you would like to just have the applicants address, how they address each one of the comments, that would suffice.
That would be great. Can you go through the list and show us your presentation then?
I can indeed. So
Okay.
Most of the items on the comments are pretty standard. I'd like to go all the way down to item number 7 on the comments. Anyone on the board, if you see anything else on these comments, I'd be happy to go over it. But it says the board recognizes that Title 24 will require many of the windows and openings to be changed to meet glazing requirements, which is true. And it's also that the material be dark color clad material that is not vinyl. I just wanted to underscore, let me go through the drawings on page A5. We have details of the windows and the doors, which pretty much mimics what's there already. So it's just pretty much it's sheet A5. There you go. Pretty much mimicking what's there already, and to replicate that on the new addition so everything matches. And yes, and that the windows do what's the word I want to use there? Comply with the Title 24 requirement. And then I think item number 11 is a landscape item. If Robert, you want to go through that? It's the landscape plan on sheet L 1.1 and sheet L 2.2 are acceptable, provided irrigation plan and planting size and specifics.
Yeah, I'm happy to go through this. So this is an overall view for the project, but if you go, let's see, the next sheet. So here we've got a blown up view of the proposed planting there at the residence, kind of around the entryway and at the base of the existing wall. And there is also a plant list with quantities and sizes, which I believe was what was asked for there. If you want to go to the next sheet, then there is a similar setup here where we've got an enlarged view of landscape proposed around the accessory structure. And in the top right there is the plant list that has sizes and quantities, which was asked for. And then if we go to the following sheet, is an irrigation plan for the area around the residence. And this outlines the drip irrigation system. There's a legend with all the components on the lower right hand of the sheet. And then if we go to the following sheet, then there is an irrigation plan for the area around the accessory structure. And then the next sheet has details for the irrigation system. So I believe that covers what was asked for, and this is a complete set in terms of what's required for landscape plans. I think that covers it.
So I also want to thank you, Richard. There is a color board that was provided. I think it's on file, but we had a color board that's also on file in the on the record. That's if they could find it.
Mr. Miller, I don't believe that the color board was included in the electronic presentation. You may need to hold it up to the webcam. I apologize for that.
Oh gosh, so all right, so we do have a color board. We have these are the lights that we're proposing. They're dark sky compliant. I think they make a nice feature to the style of the home. The exterior, featured wood trim is going to be an aesthetic white. The dark wood, the deck trim will be a what they're calling an aqua verde. The board batten siding will be a dry dock, a kind of a nice sandstone brown. And then the chimneys are going to be an alabaster. So it's kind of going to lighten up the house, I think, and give it a more contemporary, not contemporary, but colors more conducive to this period rather than it's sort of, you know, feels of the 70s. But I think it's going to be a really nice upgrade to how the house is going to overall look. So these are the colors, and hopefully if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The other thing I want to bring up is the board requests staff to clarify the neighbors' legal questions brought up during the public comment. As you know, there were certain neighbors that were deeply concerned about this project, and they brought up issues about the client and issues about why we were doing it, and all the issues about fear that it's going to be something that the client is not telling the truth, and anxiety that some kind of conflict of interest of me being on the board, whatever. So I thought would be helpful for those watching this to get a better understanding of what I'm doing on this project, and so they can kind of see what we're trying to achieve here. So what I would like to do is I'm going to read the scope of work and put it on record so that anyone who listens to this broadcast can fully understand what we're doing here. And this is my responsibility in terms of what the client hired me to do. And this is what it is number one, remove illegal kitchen and laundry facilities in the accessory structure, which we did. Number two, remove and repair damaged sewer lines in and around the accessory structure, complete removal and sanitizing of the contaminated dirt of affected area by a licensed plumber per requirements of the Santa Barbara County Environmental Health Department. This will include a letter certifying waste lines and all contaminated areas have been mitigated. Lauren Anderson, city inspector, will be contacted once completed, and then there's a phone number for her to call. Number three, remove and replace illegal polyethylene gas line that supplies accessory structure. New gas line to be installed underground with proper materials and methods per current plumbing code requirements. Gas service to be restored once final inspection has been granted. Number four, remove of illegal dwelling unit in garage at main residence and restored back to a garage. Number five, illegal dwelling unit in accessory structure to be restored as an accessory structure and not as a dwelling unit per 2015 International Property Maintenance Code section 108.1.4. Number six, remove all accumulated rubbish, trash, and storage from the property per the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code section 308.1 and Santa Barbara Municipal Code section 28.87.190. Number seven, remove and convert front door as a framed opening in main entrance. Number eight, enlarge upper family room and enclose lower entry courtyard located between the wings of the house by removing existing north-facing upper wall, extending the floor and enclosing with new upper and lower walls, adding 108 square feet, new 121.5 square feet, I don't know what Jamie said, to the upstairs family room, and new entry room 481 square feet new, 526.5 square feet existing. Number nine, repair existing doors and windows as needed. Number 10, Tier 1 best management practices to be implemented. Number 11, stormwater best management practices to be implemented, area of proposed non-permeable surfaces less than 500 square feet, tier 2 stormwater management requirements to be implemented, rain barrels at downspouts to be installed. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're doing on this project. And as you know, it went before the city council and the appeal was denied. But I do know that the neighbors are still very concerned about it. And I just want to make sure that they're aware of what we're trying to do here. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
And Brian, maybe I could piggyback onto the scope of work in terms of the landscape part of it. So just to kind of make clear what the landscape is addressing, because it's not just planting. If we could pull up L1.1, that'd be great. Yeah, go up. Here you go. In the lower right hand of the sheet, there's a scope of work that identifies what's going on here. And part of it is the new planting and irrigation. But we also reviewed the site, and the site needed work in terms of cleanup. So we addressed the cleanup of wanting to get rid of, dead plant material. There was like old fencing, garbage on the site. Also addressed some of the annual maintenance that should be done for fire safety on the property. So our interest with this property was to bring it up to what is a safe standard for the whole neighborhood, and the landscape plans not only address new planting, but notes on how the site should be properly maintained. So I just thought that might be helpful to reinforce with the presentation. So I think that covers it.
Thank you. So that's the conclusion of, thank you, Richard. So that's, or Robert, that's the conclusion of our presentation.
Okay, then do we have any public comment, Ted?
Mary, would you please confirm if we received any written public comment?
Thank you, Ted. We did not receive any written public comment for this item.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And if you would like to give verbal public comment on this project, now is your opportunity to do so. To do so, please follow the instructions on screen and click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel. When staff calls on you, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. And looking at the attendees in the audience, I do not see anyone with their hands raised. All the attendees are applicants for the next project. So I believe with that, we can move to questions from the board.
Great. Then we'll go down the list. Mary, could I see the roll call list so I know who to call on? Anyway, yeah, we'll start with Jan.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Joe?
No, I'm very familiar with the project and I don't have any questions this time either.
Fred, how about you?
No question.
And I have, let's see, Mr. Ziegler, how about yourself? Do you have questions? Yes, no? Well, we can't hear you, unfortunately. So I have no questions. And we'll move on to comments. Jan, do you have comments?
I do. So I just want to say that I appreciate, Brian, that you went over the scope of work of information that was going to be happening and what your plan was for this project. And also Robert, noting what the cleanup was going to be. I mean, I went out and saw this originally back in March, and the house, it was a mess and the property was a mess. And so I really appreciate you letting us know what the goals were. And I think it's going to be a great improvement.
Okay. Joe?
No, I don't have any comments on it. I appreciate the project and I agree with Jan. I think this project is, well, how it is being handled is very good and it'll be a nice home to live in. Thank you.
Fred?
Yeah, my only comments is that the drawings appear to be in final position for approval, and that it should be clear that the board did not hear any advocating on behalf of the client by the two applicants. They merely stated the requirements as stated on the drawings.
Thank you. Jonathan, do you have comment? No. My comment would just echo all of yours, and it really, I hope satisfies the fears of the neighbors that you two went so out of the way to really detail what was going on, what's going to go on out there. And it's a great plan. I think it takes into consideration fire safety, and I would look for a motion to give this project design approval.
Madam Chair, it's final approval.
Oh, sorry, final approval. Oop.
I will move for final approval with the stipulation that from this point forward, once the 10-day appeal period is completed, that this board does not have the authority to oversee construction, and that is the sole requirement of the building department. That's the
Okay,
motion.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Jan.
Can we have a roll call?
Yes,
Mary?
thank you, Ms. James. We have Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes,
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. And Mr. Ziegler's thumbs up is an approval for the record, and the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. This project has a 10-day appeal process, and that process is now available on your screen. Oh, Mr. Miller? I can't hear you.
Mr. Miller, if you can just unmute yourself. There you go.
Is there a 10-day appeal period?
Mr. Miller, Vice Chair James, board members, any action by the Single Family Design Board can be appealed. However, the guidelines do state that, for a final approval, the project should really only be appealed if the final approval plans differ significantly from the project design approval plan. Final approval appeal that is appealed on a basis that's inconsistent with project design approval has the potential to be upheld. But then if the project was granted an approval without a project design approval decision, then the final approval decision is a substantive decision. So this project received project design approval on March 2nd and final approval today. So it could be appealed, but it's not likely to be upheld.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would also add that the council in denying the appeal upheld the project design approval for the project.
Okay, I will add that language that the council in denying the appeal upheld the design approval for the project.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have a vote? Did we take a vote? No, we're on the next project.
Okay.
If Mr. Miller and Mr. Roberts would resume their,
I'm gonna crawl over the table now.
okay, under.
Okay, Board Member Richards and Chair Miller, if you could please go back and change your GoToWebinar status name to your SFDB role names, that would be great. And we'll move on to review of item 3.
Okay, I'm back as a board member.
Okay, thank you very much. Chair Miller, meeting is now yours. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item number 3. Let me get my different hat on. This is a new item, so I'm going to read it into the record. It's 202 La Plata. Proposal for a 630 square foot second story addition with a second floor terrace and alterations to the first floor, including a new retractable patio cover. Sorry, there's dogs barking in the project site is located on a 6,482 square foot lot in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. The proposed total of 2,271 square foot of development is 99% of the maximum guideline for the lot area ratio. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. Do we have a representative for this project, please?
Chair Miller, board members, we do have applicants on board. We are just letting them into the meeting now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. I'm Barry Winnick, board member and chair.
Yes, we can, Mr. Winnick. Thank you for testing your audio.
Great, well, thank you. And thank you for letting me into the meeting and having me participate. So we're here and ready. Wasn't sure if, oh, and also Gustavo Zinkowicz is logged in as well from my office. He's working remotely today. So I'm not sure if we're making a presentation first or if our planner is. So you can just guide me on that.
Mr. Winnick, now would be your opportunity to go through the plans, give your presentation. There is a 15-minute time limit, but you can ask for additional time. The chair can grant additional time at his discretion. And then there will be an opportunity for questions from the board.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Okay, well then, board chair and members, happy to present this. So this is at the corner of La Plata and Calle Bravo on the Mesa. It's about, say, two blocks back, maybe 3 blocks back from Shoreline. So technically, it's really 1 full block back because they're very long blocks, but in a normal city street, it would feel like several. And so great, we've got the site vicinity up, so thank you for doing that. And what the project is today is there's an existing, very nicely built, modern style, sort of Reef Belt, Dutch style modernism house on the corner, and it's a 3-bedroom single family residence. And we're proposing adding a new master bedroom at the 2nd floor above where the existing master bedroom is now, at a 4th bedroom. And so it's basically an 1,810 square foot house. We're adding 607 square feet to, so it'll be a total of 2,457 square feet, not including garage, but just to give you an idea of it's a very modest addition, really to get an extra bedroom, one that can now get a view up to the mountains behind and also looking out towards the coast. We've also, in our design, and I'll talk you through the existing conditions in a minute, but in our design, we very deliberately pulled it back from the street corner in order to have it so it's, you know, very sympathetic to light and air at the corner of the street, and also to maintain privacy in the neighborhood for the clients as well as everyone else. So.
And pardon my
so-
interruption, Mr. Winnick. If you want to give us verbal instructions, Timmy Bolton is controlling your plans. So if you'd like to go to a particular page number or zoom in on a location, just let us know. Again, just the more verbal instruction that you provide, the easier it'll be to get there. Thank you.
Well, it was perfect what you did before. So if you can go to the second page, which is T002, and that is the existing condition photographs. And again, you can see the house on the lower left corner. That's the key plan and the various photos looking around it. The most important photo is the one that's noted as number 1 in the bottom right corner, because that really gives you a good sense of what the house looks like from the streetscape. And that's really what anybody in the public sees. And by the way, one of the other things that's being noted as part of the project is there's going to be a little bit more of a garden fence that's very modest in height, that's going to be right at that corner, that's going to give a little more privacy to that yard and to the living room behind it as part of the project. The other thing, looking at the house, you'll see that there's these existing fences that are made out of redwood. Those are very hard to maintain and have always been very dark, so they were going to be replaced with Kumaru wood siding, which, if you're familiar with our other house that we just did recently at Shoreline, that house is all Kumaru. So it's a lighter wood, and we think it'll be have a nicer natural look as part of this design. And we can go to the next page, which just gives you more of the neighborhood context. Again, maybe the zoom into that second photo from the bottom, because that's the one that, again, gives you really a good sense of the house and the neighborhood. By the way, we weren't the original architects, but we admire the work that the clients did with the first architect on the house. We think they did a very nice job proportioning this house. And as a result of that, we've really looked to maintain those proportions, as you'll see as we go through the design. It's a very handsome house, and we really wanted it to stay and feel as handsome as it does now. So next page is some of the boilerplate. There was a resolution for making some of the accommodations for the side yard. This property has a large driveway, and of course it's on the corner. So being a corner property, it has more setback requirements than a typical house does when it's a mid-block. So anyway, you don't need to read all these, but we just included the conditions of approval from SHO, the resolution the first time, which enables the house to sit very well where it sits now. And then the next page is existing in demo. And so this will show that there's really not much in the way of demolition. We're keeping the footprint of the house the same. And what's great is our new project really doesn't have any ground disturbances because it's built on top of the existing house. Hence, we also haven't submitted any landscape changes. The landscape is, again, not getting changed. And then the next one is the first floor, which shows a little more specifically work that's being done. And you'll see the master bedroom currently is at the lower bottom. Thank you for circulating that. So that will become a third bedroom on the ground floor, and the master will move upstairs. The other thing that is happening is off to the right of the entrance is where we're in, just to the back of that master bedroom is where the new proposed stair will go. You'll see that as we move forward. Next page, please. This is the roof plan. And the addition is principally going on top of that hip roof that's right in the center of the page. That is where the new master bedroom is going. So we're putting it mid-block. We're holding it back from our eastern neighbors. We're holding it back street to the south as well as to the west. And we're also, keeping our solar access for the neighbors behind us as well. The next page shows elevations of existing. And since you saw those pretty well in the photos, I think we'll flip quickly. So the next one is additional existing. And then the next page shows the proposed site plan. And you could zoom into this too, thank you. So what you're seeing is in that center section, where the hip roof was, is where the master bedroom addition is. The component to the left, which is a rectangle, is the roof over the stair. And the component to the left of that is a trellis that allows, it's an open trellis that is over a deck area that's off of the master bedroom. Next plan is the ground floor plan, shows the introduction of the stair to the left of the master bedroom, of what used to be the master bedroom. So it's sandwiched between the entrance hall and bedroom wing. Next page, second floor plan. And so this shows the master bedroom, the bathroom, a dressing room, the stair, and then the deck area off to the left. Next plan, roof plan. And it just show that we are putting solar panels, I believe, am I right? Yeah, hot water solar panels above the stair, and the rest is, you know, pretty straightforward. Then we get to the elevations. Next page, great. So this is that continuing with the modern style that you know, has handsome proportions, and it's changing the redwood to Kumaru. So now you see in that lower elevation, which is really the most prominent elevation of the house, you'll see that what used to be screening outside of the master bedroom at the lower level is now Kumaru. And then that lines up with a low fence. I'm thinking I can't read it anymore, but it's maybe only, yeah, it's 1'6", very low fence, because the wall is already up about 2.5 feet. There's a 1'6" fence that takes that same coloration of the Kumaru around the curved corner for a little more privacy. And then that gets repeated with some of the woodwork upstairs around that terrace. You see the Kumaru show up again. And the house existing finishes are all plaster with gray metal flashing, very nice large metal clad windows with the same kind of gray metal. We'll use all the same fenestration, same glass color that's there currently. So it's, you know, it's really using the existing palette. The only change out is the redwood to the Kumaru. Next is the other pair of elevations. One facing, there's a lag time, sorry. One's facing the backyard and the other's facing the driveway. I just wanted to note that this upper elevation is the one that faces the driveway, and one of those windows is on the back of the master bedroom and the other one's off of the master bathroom. They're both up rather high, and that was done deliberately in order to afford our clients privacy, but also to afford the neighbors privacy. So there's really, nobody's looking in and out of those rooms. This other back elevation, the lower left, those are, and it's a high window in the bathroom. And next drawing just shows a section through it. The stair gives basic heights. But I could point out in terms of heights, we're entitled to build a building at 30 feet above grade here, but we didn't. We stayed within 25 feet to our, well, 25'6", let's call it, to the top of our parapet. Our plate heights are even lower. We're 23'6" to a plate height. So we really stayed within more of a 25-foot height limit rather than going to the 30. Again, because we felt it was more proportional dimensions of the house and its original design. And the next is just a couple details that show some of the trellising over the entrance, some of the railing details. Some of this is a little bit early because this is, I know, just conceptual, but, and you can look at the next page too, some of the details for the sliding doors and eaves and what have you. Things that we're looking forward when we come back for preliminary final. And that's our presentation. Happy to entertain any questions.
All right.
Okay, I apologize, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, thank you. Do we have anyone from the audience wanting to speak, or did we get any correspondence, Ted?
I believe we did receive written public comment. Mary, would you please confirm?
Yes, thank you, Ted. We did receive one email from Mr. Jonathan Cates, and that was it.
Okay, one item of written public comment, and we can move to verbal public comment now. If you are attending this meeting and you'd like to give verbal public comment, now's your opportunity to do so. Please follow the instructions on screen, click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak once staff calls on you. I don't see anybody in attendance who wishes to speak at this time, only one in attendance, and it looks like he's also the applicant. So we can move to questions from the board.
All right, thank you very much, Ted. So I'm going to go down the list for if you have any questions. So Board Member James, do you have any questions?
I do. I have a couple questions. To begin with, I'm not really clear on where this, the Uber, whatever the other wood you're using is. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name. And you're removing the redwood fencing and then replacing it with the new wood. Can you clarify that?
I'm happy to. So every place that you see this elevation, for instance,
Mr. Winnick, do you mind turning your webcam back on? Part of my interruption. We turn them off during public comment. Thank you. It makes it easier to see what you're saying. Thank you.
Sure. Is it on?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Please
great.
continue.
Okay, great. So on this elevation, which is a good place to answer that, any place that you see it rendered in a brown color, that is what we're proposing to be Kumaru. The current redwood occurs in front of the just to the left of the garage, you see 4 vertical windows or doors. That's currently redwood in that location. And then at the very left-hand side of the page, behind the trees, there's a fence back there that's also redwood. So we're replacing what's in redwood with the Kumaru, which is a lighter brown wood. And it's kind of like Ipe, but lighter and just, you know, for me, it's a little more pleasant material.
Okay, that's one of my questions. The trellis over the new, there's 2 trellises, is that correct, on new upper level decks?
On the upper level deck, there's 1 trellis. There's another trellis we're putting in the backyard outside of the kitchen. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that before, which is going at the ground level, just to give privacy to their backyard. So that people can't just look over. An ADU is going to be built right next door. So rather than having the ADU staring in their backyard, we're putting a small trellis in the backyard. So the one that's going on the 2nd floor, again, you see it in this rendering, is that the structure that you see to the left of the stair. It's a horizontal gray element, which goes past the chimney. So I don't know if I can annotate, so but I don't know if you can see my arrow when I move it. Does anybody else see that? I have no idea what, okay, I don't think there's
Mr. Winnick, unfortunately not. Timmy Bolton, our associate planner, is behind the scenes controlling the plans. So just please direct Timmy on anything you'd like to show.
All right, well, we'll just start from left to right. So at the very left, you see the windows of the living room, and it has a nice horizontal transom. It's a very wide transom. Then to the right of that is the chimney. We're taking the chimney and going higher with it because that's the existing fireplace in the living room. The trellis is behind that chimney, spanning from the left over the living room to the stair tower at the right. It goes really behind the chimney. And we're extending the chimney, one, so we can have an outdoor fireplace on the roof deck, but also because we have to, you know, because it's a chimney from down below, we need it to be higher than anybody because of the smoke.
Okay, then both number detail 8, is that, I assume that's new cable rail?
Correct.
Okay, and then the last question is, do the trees that are showing up on your elevation, are those proposed? And is that one on the roof?
So the tree that's on the ground to the left is existing. The one that's showing on the roof, I think I have to just give that credit to being illustrative. It probably shouldn't have been drawn in there. So there isn't a tree that's on the backyard. So at this moment, it is drawn on the roof. I'm not sure we're really including.
Another question. What was the FAR prior to the addition?
Let me look at the stats page. That I don't remember.
Yeah, I
offhand.
couldn't see it. It was too small. I couldn't zoom in enough to see that.
The FAR beforehand, oh, that's lot coverage.
Hello?
Yeah, maybe. Bob, are you there? If you know it.
Yeah, the FAR was 77%.
Thank you.
It's right there to the left. Yeah.
77? Oh,
Yes, that's
thank you.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a small lot, and a lot of it is covered with driveway. They can park 4 cars in the driveway, and you know, they also have the 2-car parking in the garage. So there's not a lot of land. It's a pretty tight site, and I'm actually pretty impressed that they don't put all their parking on the street, that they actually do afford it in the driveway. So it's not
Okay,
surprising.
thank you. And what is the total square footage of new second-story decking that you have?
Second floor deck is existing total proposed. Hold on. If you find it faster than me, Gustavo, be my guest.
Yes, it's about 656 square feet.
There it is. Yep. On that same chart.
For the both combined,
Yes, correct.
Perfect, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Board Member Farrell, do you have questions, please?
The only question I had for you, Mr. Winnick, is the new fence that you're proposing, is that going to stay horizontal fencing, even though you're changing out the style of wood?
Yeah, that's the intention.
Yeah, okay. And what about the distance from the second-story deck to the property line?
I mean, it's the same as the living room to the property line. So, Gustavo, do you know that dimension? Let's see if it's on there.
Well, right now, from the property line, the living room wall is about 20 foot 11. So the railing is going to fall in line with the wall below of the living room. So it will be about, 21 feet from the property line.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Great.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, any questions, please?
Yes, I have a couple. From the elevations and your elevations, and looking at from the street that I observed, it looks like a flat roofed house with a parapet, and you've been talking about a hip roof. Is that a hip roof inside that parapet?
Yeah, it is a flat roofed house, and I think when I was saying hip, I should have said valleys. That was the diagonal lines that were showing on that roof just show the roof drainage. And I'm sorry, I used the wrong term.
Right now, we're looking at, go back. Okay, go back.
Right there. Right, so that's just, those lines represent the drainage, and I just, called it wrong.
Okay.
It is a flat roof. There's just enough slope in order to shed the water.
Let me see. Yeah, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flat surfaces, whether they're roofs or decks, they are flat.
Exactly.
Runoffs for the roof areas. Is that trellis that's covering and I'm assuming, tell me if I'm right, that's a view deck, not a view deck for the whole house.
I mean, it's off the master, off the master suite. So it's really meant deck for the master.
You go up the stairway, you turn right to go in the master bedroom, and you turn left to go into the view deck out of the top of the stairway.
You can call it whatever you'd like. What I can tell you, the intention is it's part of basically the more private section of the house, which is intended for the master.
Very good, okay.
It is off that level.
So there's no tree up there. As it exists right now, oh, that's a comment. I'm still asking, I should ask questions. So there's no tree up there, that's correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I have now. I have several comments to make. Go ahead, I'm through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Board Member Richards, questions?
Yeah, the new fence that you're proposing that's going to run like around the corner there is just to keep the, it looks like synthetic turf. Is that just going to be the synthetic turf, like kind of in front of that fence, between the fence and the top of the wall?
Yeah, I'm sorry. For some reason, I'm getting a very blurry audio. Has anybody else been able to hear Mr. Richards? Because maybe you can repeat the question for me.
Hello.
So, maybe you could repeat your question, Mr. Richards. I was able to hear it, but it might help the applicant if you could repeat it again, please.
Yeah, my question was if there was going to be any new planting in front of the proposed fencing that's wrapping around the corner of the property there, the row fence that you've got.
Right. At this time, no, because that's already been planted. The issue that's happening is that what's there doesn't provide enough privacy for the living room behind it, which is why we're adding that extra 1.6 height of basically fencing material. So right now, there's no intention to plant it further.
Okay, that was my only question. I'll proceed to comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Sweeney, do you have questions, please?
Yes, can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, can we go to the site plan first, please? Okay, thank you. I did study the drawings this morning. Could you reconfirm the setback lines along each street?
Mm-hmm.
If Timmy can point to those setback lines, perhaps.
Yeah, the 20-foot 11, thank you on that one. And then on the other side, should be there.
So the setback is 20 feet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then your open space, are you required to have 1,200 square feet of open space somewhere in the yard?
Yeah, so this is where you get into the conditions of why that extra sheet was included from the staff hearing officer last time with the resolution. They made modifications.
Okay, so that was approved, whatever that is, it's been reviewed and approved by the staff hearing officers, correct?
Exactly, as the last, when it happened with the last, correct.
Okay. Then can we go to the second floor plan, please? Okay, in the 656 square foot of deck area off the second floor, I'm assuming that includes the area where it appears to be there's a cooking area and a sink?
Correct.
Correct? So that's part of the 656.
So
and then there is
it's not a cooking area. Sorry, it's not a cooking area. There is a sink. There's like
yeah, well, I think it's hard. It was hard. You know, we're trying to review all these things on little laptops,
Sure.
so sometimes we see everything. That's why I'm asking questions.
There's a sink. There's a sink, the refrigerator, but no cooking.
Okay.
The barbecue is on the lower level.
Okay, and that's lower because I see a set of steps going up, correct? Right there. Okay. And
Yeah.
then that 656 is also part of the thing labeled East Terrace,
Correct.
correct? Okay, and then do we have a deck area off of the master bedroom at the second floor?
There is a small one towards the street, correct?
And is that part of the 656?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Mr. Sweeney.
What's that? Is that part of the 656?
I'll have to have Gustavo answer me. Gustavo, is that part of 650?
Yes, that's correct.
It is, okay.
And so that dimension is right. There was no dimensions on these drawings for the deck, so I couldn't, and I have no way to scale them on the computer. There's no bar graph. So roughly, what's the dimension of that deck off the master bedroom?
Give me a second.
Probably 12 by 8.
Okay, thank you.
The space says 13. The dimension says 13 up there.
Oh, okay, then 13, sorry.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't see the other dimension. All right. Then let's go to the sections, please. Okay, so if we could zero in on the top section, Penny, please. Okay, best I can read it, the ceiling height of the master dressing room, which I assume also represents the ceiling height of the master bedroom, appears to be 9'6". Is that correct?
Correct.
Then the dimension up to the underside through the staircase is 23 feet, 4 and some inches, correct?
23 and a half.
Okay, thank you. And then let's go to the section below that, please. That one, thank you. So the place where they're not going to be solar panels, they're going to be, what did you say, water?
Yeah, they're solar panels.
Okay, and they're located up where that little piece of parapet is, which looks to be about 12 inches high, along grid line 1B.
Correct.
Okay. And then the roof level, there's roof louvers that are acting as a trellis over the terraced area on the second floor. Correct. And then there is the same louvered areas off the first floor, off the back patio. Do you have a section through that? Did I miss that?
I'm not sure if it's in the details on the other page. No, I don't think that section's in the set.
Okay, so those on the first floor, that would be in the area that I can see from the street where the outdoor lights are now sprung, correct? There's a whole series of also outdoor Italian lights.
Right.
Okay, so
this
that's
would
in the,
replace that.
okay, thank you. And let's see. I think that's, one last thing, if you could give me the dimensions of that terrace area, just the rough dimensions, please.
Of which one?
On the second floor, the terrace, the larger terrace area.
Larger area? Okay. Scale in front of.
You don't have to be precise.
Well, I'm gonna guess 1512 by. Gustavo, you can throw me a rope here.
Yeah, give me a second.
By
I'm
20.
gonna open the drawing.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
12 by 21. Okay, that's close enough.
By 4, I think. Because it looks like.
Okay, and then the west terrace, you have what appears to be landscaping on the what is that? The south side or east side, west side?
Yeah, that's actually it's a kitchen garden. So it's a vegetable
Okay,
garden.
so that's planted at that deck level, correct?
Correct.
And is that like a foot and a half deep or a foot deep or is that individual potted plants? What's the thought?
It's probably 2 foot deep, which is what I think we did recently nearby this other project.
Okay, so it's a plant. It's not potted. It's planted plants in a soil bed of some sort.
Right, that's the intention. Basically, it's like a raised bed, but instead of on the ground, it's a raised bed here at the terrace.
Okay, gotcha. And you show on the elevations what appear to be cable rails around that edge to go behind where that sink and refrigerator is shown. How high is it on that back piece that's facing, what is that, north or east?
Well, they're 42
You
inch.
can't- 42 inches, and then, so there's nothing higher than 42 inches. Or is there? See where your note, I think it's note 7? Up on the second floor?
I don't see a
Can't
7.
read it.
Sorry. Let's see.
Note 1, excuse me. So how high is that element?
That's an interesting question. So, that's because it steps up. I guess that is a little hard. Gustavo, do you know what the height is on that one?
I'm opening the file. If you bear with me for a minute, I'll give you the dimension.
Okay. Oh, here it is. I found it. It's 3'2". If that's the right element. Yeah, it's 3'2" from the deck below.
Oh, 3'2", so is that sitting up on top of the 2 feet of soil? Is that how that works?
So I think if you may clarify, the expression from the outside is going to be a 4'2" solid band of wood, and then you have a 3'2" version of kind of like an open wood design. The 4'2" mark represents the almost like the top of the backsplash of the counter. So the planter will start maybe 12 inches less than that. So if you subtract going down, so the top of the planter will be at about 3'2", and it's going to have a skirt presumably to the floor. So you're going to have 2 foot deep. So it's going to be some sort of, 1 foot MTB underneath.
Okay, it's still a little confusing, but I'll save it for comments. And then roughly that little area where the sink and the refrigerator are, what's that dimension? Is that 8 feet by 14 or something? What is that?
Of clear deck?
Yeah, that west deck, I guess, or west, the plan's not there, I can't see.
It's about 13 by 9.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that covers my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Mr. Ziegler available? I don't see him on the panel, so I don't know. Available. I'm gonna say he's not.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to do that. So Mr. Ziegler is still attending. If he could share his webcam. Mr. Ziegler, I've sent you a webcam request. And if you could just, there you go. He's been here. Thank you.
Can we hear you, Jonathan? No.
Still no audio, unfortunately.
Good call, Dan.
Jonathan, I can't hear you. So I think I'm going to move on. Ellen?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Mr. Ziegler still does not have audio, and we've worked with him, but for whatever reason, his computer and trying to dial in has still not worked. So, but he can hear everybody. He's just not able to comment right now.
Okay. So I'm going to let that go as it is. The only questions I have pretty much already been asked. So I don't have any more questions. So I'm going to go into comments. So I'm going to go down the list. So the first on the list is Board Member James. Do you have comments, please?
I do. When I drove up, I went, oh, the Lantern House. That's my nickname for it because at night, it is just such a beacon. And though in and of itself, I like the project, I like the architecture. I wish it was buried in a bunch of trees or on 3 acres where you could see it in the background, but especially when you gave the context of the neighborhood, it seems like it's a sore thumb. And especially at 99%, I think it's a little too much. And I would love to see some, I know there's a lot of views involved, but you have views from so many different places. I would love to see a bunch of screening around this property. So I'm a little betwixt and between about whether I'm supportive. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Board Member Farrell, do you have comments, please?
I do, but I also have one more question, just for clarification. On the second story, do we have a west terrace, an east terrace, and a master terrace? So 3 separate deck areas on the second floor? Did I read those plans correct?
Sorry, I got muted, so hopefully I'm back.
Yeah.
Okay, so really there's the terrace to the west, which it's sort of a 2-level terrace, because getting up from the stair level to over the living room, which has already got a different ceiling height, it took the 2 levels to get there. So that's really one terrace, the west terrace, and then the master terrace. Why the other one's titled east is a little confusing, actually. But anyway, there are 3 terraces. If you want to look at it that way.
And then east terrace.
It really functions as a west terrace and a master terrace.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for clarifying that question for me. And then I'll just go to the comment. I haven't seen this house at nighttime, so I'm not sure about the glow effect that Lisa's talking about. But what I would like to say is, I know when people design it, try to add a second story to an existing property, it's very difficult to make it look like it's part of the original house. And I do appreciate that your design does stay within that. It looks like it's part of the original design. So I think that's a positive thing. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you very much. Board Member Motisha, comments, please.
Yes, I'll get to the questions I had leading into before. You have basically about 600 square feet of terraces. And yes, the west and east terrace are private, but they're, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure that our guidelines in our single family design guidelines don't allow us to have that much square footage and on upper decks. And you've basically added a second floor of a master bedroom, which is guideline, but to put 2 very big terraces on the roof that are right out there on the corner of the property, a little bit beyond our guidelines, and just makes that house, as far as our guideline, I think our guidelines is the size and bulk just way over what. So I think what's the word? I can support, and also the fact you put an east terrace that's 2 steps above a terrace you already have, and then put privacy fences around that west terrace, and then a covering trellis over the east terrace. You've got a massive amount of area up there that a lot of people are going to be at for a private terrace, second floor terrace. And then on top of that, your FARs are up. Of course, let me ask the question, and I don't think the FARs include those terraces. Am I correct? Could somebody answer that for me?
Board Member Motisha, Ted Hamilton, that's correct. Decks are not included in a core to lot area ratio calculation.
Yeah, basically the master bedroom, master bath, dressing. I would like to see it to come down to within our single family design guidelines of a lot closer to 85, 86% rather than up at 99% and have us looking at a house that's really too big for that corner and too, like Lisa says, I have not, and like Jan, I have not been up there at night, but I will go up there at night and take a look at it, what it looks like with all those lights on. And there's a couple other houses in the area that have flat roofs, but most of the houses are still, there's a couple second story houses that have been added too, but most of the houses are still single story original houses within what I think is our neighborhood defined as this neighborhood for this house. And I think it's the size bulk, not the scale, but the size bulk is massive for this property. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Motisha. Board Member Richards, do you have comments, please?
Yeah, I agree with the previous comments that the addition to the building is getting unnecessarily high, and then there's a lot of exterior decks that are in the program that you're proposing. So I don't know that I feel it's really appropriate. I agree with the previous two comments. And then I'm also concerned about all the synthetic turf that's in front of this home, in the parkway. And now I can see that you're, with the new fence that you're proposing, that's going to wrap the corner. I think there's an opportunity to bring in some planting other than the little bit of ground cover and existing synthetic turf that's there. That will kind of work in tandem with this fence that you're proposing to help soften the view from the corner. And maybe there's some opportunities to get some larger plant material on the inside of the fence, but right now that's, I think there's an opportunity to bring in some new planting around the corner with that fencing. So that's my comment. And unfortunately, I need to step out of the meeting here because I have an appointment here in a few minutes. I just have to take my comments, and I'll see you guys at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Mr. Sweeney, do you have comments, please?
Yes, I generally agree with the comments that have been made so far. I do disagree that we should be saying we'd like to see a little reduction in the FAR. I don't want to see a little. I want to see a reduction back to the 85%, period. This house is too big. What they're proposing is too big. This house might work in a very dense urban context, like one would see in Chicago or Los Angeles or some other places, but not in this neighborhood. One of the dilemmas this board has is every time we approve a very contemporary design, and I don't remember ever seeing this house in its first iteration coming before this board, and I've been on the board for 9 years and have a pretty good memory, but it might have. But we're having a real challenge trying to introduce contemporary architecture into a neighborhood that never was that. And one of the findings we have to find is compatibility. So that's a real stretch in this case for this house. So I'm going to have a very difficult time doing that in general. There's entirely too much square footage in the terrace areas. Using the dimensions you just gave me, because these things aren't dimensioned properly for me to make that determination, I came out mathematically with deck sizes closer to 465 square feet, not 600, but I don't think that's right. I think the 600 square feet is is correct. And that's a lot of second floor deck. So that's just not appropriate. The locations, they want, you know, they're trying to provide for privacy for themselves, and yet if you walk along that street and you're looking up and through those railings, you're going to see everything, and all the glass lets you look in the house. So, you know, Lisa's comment about this would be a perfect house on a 3-acre site is exactly right. The applicant and designers might be taking a look at our guidelines on page 71N, 70N, 69N, and the guidelines, at least the copy I have, those are the page numbers that talk about appropriate locations for decks and sizes, etc. So this is inappropriate. Let's go to I want to make comments on the elevations. Joe mentioned size, bulk, and scale. The bulk of the building is being created because the second floor is out of scale. The relationship between the first floor that's existing and the addition of the second floor, the scale and proportions are very, very awkward. First of all, the ceiling heights are all way too high. The staircase element is way too high. The trellis over the terrace area is way too high. What the applicant isn't showing is a human figure, 6-foot-high human figure that would better assess for everyone to understand what the awkwardness is. I think that the master bedroom ceiling height needs to be dropped. I would be approval of something like 8'6". And then the elevator element, or the elevator, it does look like an elevator. The stairwell elevation needs to be dropped and reconsidered on the amount of glass. One thing I noticed when I was out there yesterday, because it was a sunny day, there was window coverings on those high windows on that first floor, which means those windows in the afternoon, because of the way the sun travels through Santa Barbara, they take a beating. This house gets a lot of sun, and the overhangs, quite frankly, I don't believe are sufficient, even with the awning showed on your details on sheet 8. So the proportions are gangly, I guess maybe that's a more appropriate word. It's very confusing about the horizontal wood slatted areas around the food preparation area, where the sink and the refrigerator is, etc. So on this elevation, that's very awkward. Can we go down to the next elevation, please? Again, on this proposed north elevation, I understand why those windows are high, and I would commend you for doing that. That would be a recommendation, certainly when they're looking at the property immediately to the north, I guess it is. But again, the scale is just highly inappropriate. That whole roof element needs to be lowered. Could we go to the next, the elevation just below that, please? The trellis element, the louvers that over that patio, I understand that an ADU is going on next to you. I appreciate that. We're struggling with these ADUs where we have no authority on, but those are out of our control. I think that this is heavy-handed in terms of how it treats the ground floor patio, and also the height of that fence is really make this a enclave that's wanting to stay out of the view of anyone. And I really don't appreciate that in terms of being a good neighbor. So I'm not saying from a privacy standpoint, people should see everything you're doing. That's not appropriate. But given all the glass you're showing everywhere else, that makes me think maybe you're not as concerned about privacy as you say you are. So I guess I'm having a hard time buying the privacy arguments for all the other openings on the house. So I think this house needs a lot of restudy. I think it needs to scale back. I think the size is too big on the terraces that are being proposed. I think that forms the bulk because of these trellises that are being proposed. I don't mind the trellis on the second level. If you look catty corner to this site, if you stand in the corner and look catty corner to the other block, there is a rooftop deck that I know was never approved by this board that's just full of stuff. And it looks really awful. And I know if people were up there partying with umbrellas and everything else, it would look even worse. When I was out there yesterday or Saturday afternoon, I think it was, that wasn't the case. But that's the thing we're trying to prevent. So if you're going to have an entertainment area up there, I commend you on the trellis idea, but it all needs to be lower. I'm nowhere near encouraging this applicant to return for project design approval until some major design issues are developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Ziegler, are you audible?
No, not yet. He is not.
I would. Okay. I'm very sorry. I hope we get this worked out for you. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed. I tend to agree with my fellow board members. I kind of feel that the original house was not gone before our board. The criteria I look at is, you know, kind of based on the what we are as a board member. Our purview is the consistency, the style of the house with an already established neighborhood. And I'm not saying that the architecture of the already established neighborhood is any better. However, I would think it would be important to the architect of this house to be sensitive and to play off of it. This house absolutely doesn't play off any of the existing. It's a statement of itself, which is fine. You know, it's a statement of a contemporary architecture. So with that being said, and it's existing, the second story has to be really sensitive. And the way to do that in this case, from my outlook, is that, yeah, the plate heights have to be lowered. It's just too big and aggressive. I think there needs to be a lot more landscaping, which is what Robert suggested too. So yeah, I think I'm going to say that I think you really need to get this to the 85% FAR. I know the architect said, well, you know, they're 5 feet below the height limit, but they're at 99% FAR. So that kind of, you know, it's just because of that, then we have to, you know, it's not really, it's in a small lot, and even at the height that it is now, it's just too tall. So yeah, I think it needs more study. So those are my comments. With that, I think someone need to make, these are comments only, so if someone would like to entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to make a motion?
Please, Mr. Sweeney, I appreciate it.
Okay, let's go down the list. If I could start with the site plan, just so I could remind myself of the elements. Okay, from a site standpoint, we want to see a considerable increase in landscaping at both corners along La Plata and the other street, which is Bravo, I think. We would like to see more definition and section through the fences being proposed and clearly understand the design of the fence and the materials. We think that the trellis element over the patio area is too aggressive and would look to either see a smaller trellis element or some different kind of configuration to make it more open. We can go to the second floor plan, please. So we need more definition for the food prep or bar area of the west terrace, and more definition and preferably sections through both the north, south, east, west directions, particularly as how the roof garden, a vegetable or kitchen garden will work, how it will be drained, etc. That the east terrace is way too large, inappropriate, and needs to be reduced in size. That the bedroom terrace needs to be reduced in size and including the landscape area depicted on sheet, whatever that number is, between D and E, and I can't read the rest of it. Sheet A 102, thank you. Let's go to the elevations, please. That the scale of the elevations need to be reworked so that the plate heights be reduced closer to 8 feet in the interior areas. That the roof elements and proportions need to be restudied at the master bedroom elevation, and that consideration be taken of reducing the amount of glazing in that new master bedroom area as it faces directly to the street. That a reduction be made or some covering be considered on the stairwell glass and glazing indicated on, what is that, the east elevation, I think it is. I can't read that. Move down a little bit, Tim. Yeah, on the east elevation, thank you. And that we get a clearer understanding of the section and configurations through any proposed terrace areas off to the north, I guess it is, based on the north arrow configuration of the site plan. Can we go to the next set of elevations, please? At the window locations on the master bath and master bedroom are appropriate at a higher elevation, but the proportions and scale need to be brought down per conversations about the other elevations. And the same applies to the, I guess, west elevation that's at the bottom there. And that when the applicant returns, we also want to see in some detail any proposed building lighting, exterior lighting, and any lighting that would be a part of any roof terrace covers, so that we understand how that may affect the lighting that would emanate from this site to the rest of the neighborhood. We would remind the applicant that dark sky compliance is an important component of our review, and that we certainly want to make sure that we reduce the lantern effect, as Lisa has outlined, that occurs from this house currently and how it would be affected with this proposed addition. I think those covered. Did I miss anything, guys? I thought I covered everything. That's my motion.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
I make a second.
All right, any further comment?
I'd like to
All right.
go ahead.
Yes.
I'd like to make a general comment.
Okay.
When I was going to school and practicing architecture, and I'm now retired, the north elevation was, I mean, we are looking at an elevation. It's not the direction we're looking at a elevation. That is not the north elevation. That is
Now,
the,
there is, Joe, that's what we call convention. So there is a convention most of us use, and we would encourage them to use the same convention. Thank you.
you like this way of calling. Sorry.
No. There is a convention, and they haven't used it, so we'd encourage them to do so, please. Thank
Okay.
you.
So you esteemed architects, I appreciate your comments, but let's go for a roll call, please.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller
Yes.
and Vice Chair James. I think you're on mute.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Board Member Farrell
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards.
not-
I guess he stepped away, and Board Member Sweeney
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. And for the record, his thumbs up signals an approval and the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is now 5:21. Okay, so moving on, do we need to take a 5-minute break or should we move on to the next item?
Keep going.
Okay, gonna keep going. So this is a continued item, the project for project design approval. Could you read into the record, Lisa?
Yes, sorry. 705 Island View Drive is here for project design approval, and the proposal is for 290 square feet of additions at the lower level, 240 square feet of upper attic storage space, a new 253 square foot upper floor balcony, and site improvements to a 1,490 square foot 2-story single unit residence. Project also includes converting 441 square feet of garage space into habitable space and constructing a new 431 square foot 2-car garage. The proposed total of 2,903 square feet of development on a 10,320 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District is 83% of the required maximum floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested, and this project requires NPO, hillside and slope lot findings, and was last reviewed March 2nd. So if the applicant would like to, did we?
Oh, yeah. So
Okay.
go through the minutes too. Thank you.
Okay, the following minutes were from the motion on the last time we reviewed it, explore reconfiguration of the first floor plan on sheet A3 for the hall and second story staircase that would be more efficient and more open to the exterior. 2, explore the upper story attic storage room in relation to reconfiguring the roof geometry of the proposed second floor element. 3, applicant encouraged to have the designer restudy the exterior elevation shown on sheet A10, make consideration to correct the existing window fenestration openings to match the photographs. Consider replacing the 3 windows on the original second floor addition to the home so all window fenestrations are the same. 4, restudy the gable configuration at the new garage element in order to have it engage with the existing south elevation. 5, a new roof configuration shall be considered for the second floor addition. Reconfigure proportions and sizes of the window fenestrations indicated on the new second floor addition so they are compatible with the existing portion of the home. 6, restudy the west elevation in relationship to the hallway and stairway access to new second floor area. 7, applicant to reconsider new roofing material, fascia, gutter, and downspout locations for the new roof configurations. 8, applicant encouraged to bring in a cut sheet of proposed new light fixtures and locations. And 9, indicate roof slope on elevations, sections, and roof plans so that board can understand the slopes of the existing and proposed roofs. The motion was made and carried unanimously.
Thank you so much. So appreciate that. Now I see that there's a representative of the project. Ted, yes. Did you have something to say?
Mr. Chair, board members, and Mr. Genovese, I would like to note that we did have an error with the plans that were posted to the website, unfortunately. You may have noticed that we had a truncated version posted. So we have the full set here, but these first few pages that were posted to the website are the updated plans. And they were updated since March 2nd. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I see Mr. Genovese is present. If you'd like to go through the items that we mentioned, how are you doing with your project?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, board, for your time. So In regards to items 1 through 9, a lot of the items took or at least spoke to the design of the garage, the proposed new garage, and the angle in which the gable was designed. We did go ahead and make all changes as you guys proposed, and that the new garage design will show that in the new plans. So just shortly, I think I'll go through them real quick. We did change, as I noted, the garage and the roof gable design. We added a cricket in order to avoid issues with drainage, as Mr. Sweeney had pointed out prior to, and we did correct all of the windows to match as far as direction of openings and size to create continuity throughout the property, especially in the new proposed.
Mr. Genovese, I hate to interrupt you. The best way to do this is if you could take each of those items and then go to the sheet where you made the changes. So if you're describing the roof, let's look at the roof plan and then you can show us the changes.
Okay, so
we have to read everything you're saying. It's easier if you just tell us for every sheet. Thank you.
Yeah, we're all kind of going, this year, the last projects, we're all sort of like dazed out. So thank you, Fred. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I apologize. I start with number 1, explore reconfiguration of the first floor plan on sheet A3. So sheet A3 is the hall and secondary story staircase that would be more efficient and more open to the exterior. If I remember correctly, we were speaking to the actual hallway, creating kind of creating maybe an opportunity to open up the hallway and take into consideration our yard space and the large area that we have there. We looked at expanding that. We're not in a position to expand the hallway because of the mountain views that come out of the window for the kitchen window that stares through the back. By expanding that hallway, we would thus just cut off about 25 or 30% of our mountain views on that side. So in doing so, we had decided to stick with the staircase widths and the hallway widths. We did, and I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we had the large French doors and side floor to ceiling windows to go along that match the current French doors in the property now on the back in that backyard or the back portion of the house. Exploring the upper attic storage room in relation to the configuration of the roof geometry of proposed second floor element. Because we changed the roof direction, and that was probably better notated on A10, page A10. The direction of that gable obviously is the same as it currently is as it would be proposed, and so having and creating a cricket for drainage and allowing the upstairs we called attic space, now we're referring it to more of a we were asked to change it to, let me look at my notes, new upper study room. And so the design of that roof and the cricket added in order to on A10 item 28 notated for proper drainage as needed for the new design of the change of the garage. Roof direction. For item number 3, the applicants can encourage study and restudy the exterior elevation shown on A10. So I believe that the original didn't have the 19-foot proposed building height, which is which matches the existing building height in the 4th bedroom or bonus room currently existing. So also on page A10, we don't plan to go higher, but to match that and to make it aesthetically pleasing, in that trying to take that room and actually draw it in to give it some I'm trying to think of the word, but to allow it to match or to be more concurrent with the current home, and that it doesn't just have this second room, or in our case, fourth bedroom or bonus room upstairs. There'd be a complementary room there above the garage. Item 4, for the new garage element, the gable configuration, a little redundant, but yes, that was changed and will remain. Item 5 is a new roof configuration shall be considered for the second floor addition, reconfiguring and proposed in sizes of windows. So the comments made were that the addition on the property as it stands now was not approved by the current board, which is, completely respectfully understood. The opportunity or the financial costs that allow with taking the roof off the existing home in order to change the roof line is not an option for us. And so we do like, and we do enjoy the look of the new proposed addition, and we would prefer to stick with the existing roof line that would match or be concurrent to the the proposed roof line that would match and be concurrent with the existing. Number 6, restudy the west elevation in relationship to hallway, stairway, caseway, and new second floor area. Not quite sure what that was speaking to. It might have fallen into item 1 on west elevation. I believe we were asked to update the heights, as I mentioned before, so I believe maybe the height were at question at that time, but they should be notated there, or they are notated there now. The application to reconsider new roofing material, fascia, gutter, and downspout locations of new roofing configuration. Yeah, with the change of the gate with the garage, we did change a bunch of the gutter lines, and we are going to stick with the redwood fascia in both the upper level of the property. The lower level of property has always been stucco. We're gonna continue to keep it stucco, and the upper elevations will be a stained redwood, as they currently are on one side of the home. Downspout locations will be were changed in concurrent with our tier 1 report, which was provided, because I know we're on a hillside design, and so the downspouts were redesigned alongside the tier 1 report to show that the water obviously needs to run as the engineer proposed. And applicant number 8, applicant to encourage to bring a cut sheet of proposed new light fixtures and locations. That should be provided on, should be A4. For proposed lights for both the newer upper study room, which I believe was the issue at the beginning, and obviously through the rest of the lower unit, bedroom, and proposed garage. With regards to external lighting, the property currently has a ranch-style downward-facing lantern. Those will remain. There's one currently by the front door, as shown on A11, or excuse me, on A10. There will be one also to the right of the garage and to the left of the both the right and left of the garage doors. And just noted, lighting to be minimal. Keep it in line with where it is now. We have made changes, and the goal is that the proposed changes will continue with kind of a ranchy farmhouse style home, and keeping lighting at a minimum and more accent than any type of illumination, both to the front of our house, to obviously the sides where there is no lighting now, and to the back of our house where we have a hillside with no neighbors. And lastly, number 9, indicate roof slopes and elevations provided. That should be also on A11. Should be the updated roof angles, if I'm correct. That will conclude my amateur presentation or comments to the 9 items that were notated on March 8th.
Thank you. So Ted, did we have any correspondence or people to speak?
Mr. Chair, board members, just ask Mary to confirm whether we received any written public correspondence.
Thank you, Ted. We did not receive any correspondence for this item.
Okay, thank you, Mary. We don't have anybody in the audience right now, but I'll go through the instructions anyway. If you'd like to give verbal public comment on this item, now is your chance to do so. Please click the GoToWebinar raise your hand icon as shown on the screen, and you'll have 2 minutes once staff calls on you. At this moment, I don't see any members of the public in attendance, so we can move on to questions.
Can I make one additional comment before we move on? Just for a visual. My neighbors, or one of my neighbors is on page A15. If you could go there for a front rendering. We have a lovely neighborhood, and one of my neighbors painted the proposed rendering of what the property would be. So if you guys, that's a watercolor. It's actually a bad copy, unfortunately, for Ellen. She's wonderful, but that's a watercolor of what the front of the property would be. All the existing olive tree, pine tree, and jacaranda, along with all the foliage, is already in place. It was there when we bought the house. We've done some ornamenting, obviously, to try to take care of things and to dress it up a little, but that is the proposed idea of what the property will look like.
So Matthew, I just want to say thank you to your neighbor. I think that's probably the most meaningful elevation I've seen. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So,
absolutely.
We're on to questions. I'm going to just go down the list here. Board Member James, do you have any questions?
Will that be the paint color that you have shown in your elevation there?
Yeah, it's currently kind of a blue gray or a dolphin gray with a white trim. We enjoy it, honestly. It looks good with a redwood, so we're going to stick with it, is the plan.
Okay, my next question, let's see, do you have photos? We reviewed it a long time ago in March, and I'm curious if you have any photos of the existing. Thank you. Yes. No. Okay, thank you. That was very helpful. I think that's it for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Farrell, questions, please.
You know what? I don't have any questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, any questions, please? Joe?
Sorry, I was muted. No, I do not have any questions at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member, so Richard's absent. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any questions, please?
Just one. Could we go back to the elevation of that outside staircase? Is that the west elevation? I don't know what sheet that's on. There we go. Yeah, the top elevation, Tim. I just couldn't see it when you were going through the drawings. Okay, so we've got the French doors, we've got the railing. Okay, I'm assuming there's a little bit of a drafting error on the right-hand side where the two new windows are in the second floor. The windows are actually going to be smaller.
Yeah.
No,
Drafting.
no, that's
No,
actually how they are. They are like
Yeah.
that. I've seen that house.
Yeah, very strange. Those windows are already in place, and those windows were built that way originally. I called it out to my draftsman, and when I went to the side of the house, I stopped commenting to him. So.
Yeah.
Okay, well, only because the drawing shows it intersecting the roof, so I don't know that it's actually, maybe that's been cut off or something in the real world. Okay, that was
weird.
Yeah, it looks a little strange, but I understand. Thank you. That was my only question.
Yeah, my apologies.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ziegler, can we hear you? No.
Board Member Ziegler, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to clarify with Mr. Ziegler, since you were absent for the March 2nd review, we just need your confirmation. You can give a thumbs up if you have had a chance to review the plans and the minutes from that meeting before questioning or commenting or voting. So if you have reviewed them, please give a thumbs up. If you haven't, give thumbs down. And for the record, Mr. Ziegler gave a thumbs down. He has not had the chance to review those plans. So at this point, he can ask questions, but should not comment or vote on the item.
All right, thank you. So I have no questions, other though I really appreciate that rendering, that watercolor. That was like nice. It's funny. It's like, because you look at that one elevation that you just showed with all those arrows, it's like a bunch of little black bugs crawling all over the drawings. I mean, if you look at it, professionally, that's not what it is, but when you look at it aesthetically and emotionally, this is far more like, got it. So anyway, those are my questions, if that's what you want to call it. I'm going to go back to the chair through the list for comments. Board Member James, do you have any comments, please?
I do not.
All right, thank you. Board Member Farrell, any comments, please?
I'm just right on board with you, Brian, and Matthew. I'm very thankful that for me as the citizen at large on this board, I'm not an architect, I'm not a designer. I appreciate being able to see the visual picture of what this house is going to look like. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, any comments, please?
Yes, I think we didn't have a say when that second floor was added to the left there. And I think the addition to the right side of the house is in keeping with the architecture of the property. It's I'm in agreement with it. I would go along with it because it's not overwhelming, but it is homogeneous, and yes, it fits our guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Sweeney, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, just a couple. I want to come back to the watercolor, but can we go to the front elevation one more time, please? The street elevation. Yeah. My only suggestion would be, I really like the resolution that you've come to us with. The only suggestion I would make is if you could get those two windows on the addition above the garage that face the street. Yeah, if you could move those closer together by a foot to each side, maybe or a foot and a half, I think from a street elevation and certainly more reflective of your beautiful watercolor that your neighbor did, it would look a lot better. It's not a requirement, but I think if you can pull that off, that might make the whole thing really kind of fall in place. So that's my only comment.
Very good. Thank you very much.
And
As,
the watercolor is, go back to the watercolor, is
Yes.
wonderful. As a watercolorist, scene painter myself, I appreciate somebody that can do really nice watercolors. So you probably owe your neighbor a whole lot.
Yes. Very good. As Ted said, Mr. Ziegler cannot speak, and basically everyone's said what I need to say. So I believe with no more comments, we're ready for, you're here for project design approval, if that is what the board chooses to grant. So if someone would like to entertain a motion, please.
I would like to give this project design approval. I feel that the changes you have made and proposed are in keeping with the characteristics of the neighborhood and will enhance the character of our city and the size, bulk, and scale is in keeping with the neighborhood. As far as the hillside and slope lot goes, that the grading is not going to impact the site or the ridgeline in any derogatory way, that the development maintains a scale that blends with the hillside, and the quality of materials and architectural design is consistent with the neighborhood.
You can, I don't know if you see this, Jan, you could read the things on what's being brought up to you there. Timmy's put up there for you.
Okay, the proposed project does not include the removal of any significant trees. The house is going to be consistent with the neighborhood. Well, especially because of the second story, in keeping with the original second story design, that balances it, and it is a nice design and keeps the natural appearance. And I think it follows good neighbor guidelines. No public views are impacted by this, and the grading is not significant to deteriorate the slope or the vegetation. That's my motion.
All right, thank you, Jan. It was a little chopped up, and I think part of the confusion was it was brought up on the screen. Could you please, Mary, could you please repeat the motion, just so we all know what it is exactly?
Sure. So the motion was for project design approval with the following comments. And so first we have the NPO findings, which included the fact that the changes proposed and made are in keeping with the characteristics of the neighborhood, enhance the neighborhood and the city. The size, bulk, and scale is in keeping with the neighborhood. It uses quality materials and design, especially the second story. It does not include the removal of trees and does not impact public views. And then the hillside design and slope lot findings were also made.
Great, thank you. May I have a
So
roll call? Yes.
We would need a second. I will second the motion.
Yes,
And
thank you.
can we have one little piece of discussion before we take the roll?
Yes, please.
Mr. Genevieve, when you return, when you come back with the lanterns or the light fixtures, just make sure you bring what we call a cut sheet with you that's on the drawings. And if you're going to match your existing ones, you just need to make sure they still make them for any reason. And also a color board that hopefully will match the colors of the beautiful watercolor that was done. So if you can make sure your draftsman checks the list of requirements for building department, that'll make the drawings final when you return for final approval. So
Thank you, Jan.
that's not part of the motion. I'm just giving you some hints about how to get through here faster when you return.
Thank you.
Dan, did you have a comment? Thank you, Fred.
And so what I wanted to add also, thank you, Fred, to my motion is that this can go back to consent for final approval.
I'll agree to that amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. So we have Chair Miller
Yes?
and Vice Chair James,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes,
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
and Board Member Sweeney.
Yes.
And then Board Member Ziegler will be abstaining. So the motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I believe that's the last item on our agenda. Therefore, I'm going to conclude the Single Family Design Board for October 12th, 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody.